Hello everyone, this is Jeannie. Hello, this is Jeannie from Historic Sotterley. Welcome back to this episode of The Big Picture. It just rained a few minutes ago. Very hot and humid today with thunderstorms. So the little rain we got just a few minutes ago just makes it feel like the tropics pretty much. So it's very, very humid. But it is a beautiful day. Everything's green. The birds like the little rain we got. And so, welcome. We are going to talk about perspective today. So the idea is that you participate by reacting, by talking to each other, commenting, asking questions. And Catherine Humphreys is my right-hand woman today behind the scenes. So she is going to be communicating with you. And I do look over all the comments and questions later after, I have a minute to think about it, and then go back and see if there's anything I missed that I need to answer or anything, or comment on. So I do look at those, even though I can't really keep up with it during the live Facebook feed. But if you're joining us late, I'm Jeannie. I'll be introducing myself every once in a while to tell people that just jump on what we're doing. And so I'm going to get started. If you miss anything or have to go do something else, don't worry, it's recorded so you can go back later. Okay? So here's what I'm doing today. I'm going to talk about the art of perspective. So here we go. Let me see. So that's my canvas right here. So I have my paint supplies. And before anybody gets nervous, no, I am not an artist. But you don't have to be to paint. You can art and painting and writing and all those kinds of arts, humanities have healing power. So don't be afraid to go buy a little cheaper canvas and some paint and go for it. It's yours. So I am sitting here because it's a threat of thunderstorms and rain. I am sitting here on the portico on the riverside of the manor house. Here's my view. Okay. So I can see down to the slave cabin. I can see a little of it sticking out. And if I turn my camera around, you can see the river. It was a little bit foggier earlier, but it's clearing up again. So this is my view today. All right, so I'm going to talk while I paint. And if you have paint supplies, go right ahead and paint yourself. So hopefully you can see this. Okay. I don't have anything fancy. You see I got a brick to hold this together and got something from the kitchen to hold my canvas up. You don't have to. You just swing it, and if you can't afford all the supplies, just create them yourself with what you have at home. No problem. All right, so perspective. And I'm going to try to talk and paint at the same time. We'll see if I can do that. What do I mean by perspective? Well, in the art world, perspective is you're painting what the artist is seeing, and if you can, someone might paint the manor house from one direction or one view or a certain part of the house, or somebody else might do another view. It's the same house, but it's a different perspective. The same is true with learning perspective, to see through another's eyes, and that's what I call perspective, is seeing through another's eyes. Now what do I mean by that? Well, let me get some paint out because I'm falling behind on my paint here. So I'm going to mix some should I do? So what color is this guy today? It's all different colors. So I'm going to mix some of my paint here. You can see. So of course we got blue and white, but there's a little gray in here. Okay, that's interesting. That's more turquoise. I don't want it turquoise. Okay, a little more blue. Make it darker. Yes, okay. Let's see what I do. I'm just going to try to paint the sky in right now. So perspective is seeing through another's eyes. We hear a lot in the news, you know, in the sometimes it's reported, you know, that a poor teacher, you know, she'll try to teach about slavery and all of that, or he, I shouldn't say she, I should say, or they will try to teach it by role playing. Well, they will say, okay, now pretend you're enslaved. You're the enslaved and you're the master. Well, what's wrong with that? And there is something wrong with it. But what is wrong with it? Does anybody know? Any comments about that? What's wrong with it? Think about it. Well, it's not the correct way to teach perspective, number one. You don't get perspective, and I believe some people too are born naturally with this ability to see through another's eyes better than others, but it can be learned. I remember as a little girl, I realized quickly that I could only see out of my eyeballs. I couldn't see what other people were seeing, and I used to imagine that, you know, when my grandma left my house, what is grandma seeing right now? That's what it is, okay? You're not pretending to be that person because you are not in their situation. You haven't lived their lives. So, you haven't lived their lives, and so you have no clue. So when you do this wrong in school, you know, you get all kinds of crazy answers from kids. You know, they'll say, a lot of them will just say, and I'm talking about all kids, you know, not just white kids, I'm talking about all students, will say crazy stuff like, well, I would just run away, or I would just do this. Well, how do they know? You know, they weren't there. They haven't gone through what this person's gone through. They don't know. But that's what they're saying. That's what happens when you role play. You don't really, it's not really effective. It's not effective. It's not the right way to teach it. So here are some clues about how to go about this. And you can start early. Little children can start learning perspective. One thing that we do, how's my sky looking? I don't think it's white enough in places, so I'm going to add some white. So, let me get a different brush. So what they're trying to do, what you're trying to do is help children and help adults, really, and this applies to adults. I always learn more than the kids, okay, when I teach. So help people look through another's eyes. It may not come natural to them because they have some people just aren't used, they see things the way they see it, and that's right, and you know, they don't understand because they're not thinking that they're in, you know, about another's, what makes this other person tick? What is going on in their life? What struggles do they have? And this is really evident too, and I'm talking about adults now, that people don't have perspectives. When I hear things like this, well, I don't understand why, you know, if you just obey the police, or you just don't make any sudden moves in the car and do what you're told, you shouldn't have any problems. I hear white people say that all the time. Well, what's wrong with that? Anybody tell me? What is wrong with that assumption? Well, you haven't grown up being a person of color, and what, we all learn things as children. We learn what we're supposed to do, like what color we're supposed to wear to a funeral, how we're supposed to behave when we go to church, how we're supposed to behave when we do this activity, or give a gift, or whatever the social thing is. We learn that from a very young age. And unfortunately, for African Americans and people of color, they have to learn some very hard lessons that white people don't have to learn. So, a white person might say, oh yeah, if you just, don't make any sudden moves or anything like that. Well, that might work for you. But the system, because it works for me doesn't mean it works for someone else. I mean, they might do everything right, okay? But there's still a chance that something bad will happen. There's a higher percentage that even though they really didn't do anything to cause this, they could be in trouble. So one of the most heartbreaking things I had to, I experienced teaching here at Sotterley. We're always trying to get, more school children to come and experience Sotterley and learn about history. And, there was a mother who was explaining that, her little second grader, she had some reservations about coming to Sotterley to learn, because she said, and this is what she said, because I wanted my baby to not have to go through this yet. I'm not ready. I want them to be an innocent child and not have to worry about this. Heartbreaking, isn't it? But it's totally understandable. And that is something white children do not really have to experience. My grandchildren, of course, all European descent. I have no grandchildren with that are not white. They can, they're range in age from 10 years old to 3 years old. And when they get out and go to church, they run around, and they talk to their friends, and, you have to tell them not to run into anybody, and they're just all over the place because they grew up there. They're so comfortable with it. Everybody knows them. But they can run around and get away with murder, really, okay? But some, can you see my picture? See my sky? How am I doing? I'm gonna add a little more white to it. Some of the African American children at church, though, I noticed and I observe that they hang on to their kids a lot closer. They do not, I don't really, most of them, they're not really allowed to run around like my grandkids are. And I don't think it all has to do with parenting or grandparenting styles. I think there's something else behind that. What do you think that might be? Any ideas? What do you think that might be that causes that to happen? Well, I have some ideas. What do you think it is? Well, my opinion is that they are being socialized for the real world, and it wouldn't be acceptable for African American children to run around like that because they will be judged, and they would be right. They would be judged differently than my grandchildren. Wouldn't it be great to have a world where, all our grandkids and everything could just run around and not have to worry about this nonsense? But it's true. It's true. So the perspective taking is imagine you are, you are seeing through somebody else. What are they, somebody else's eyes? What have they been through? And this is what you do in history. That's why it's important to read different perspectives on history. What made them tick? What made them make the choices? What was going on in that time period in history? Listen to their stories. Listen to their choices. Another thing I hear, and I see it touted sometimes on the news, is they make a big deal of somebody's a victim, and they happen to be a person of color, and they're killed or they're maimed, and then people want to talk about their pre-existing conditions. Okay. Let me just ask you, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, because that wouldn't happen to me. If somebody murdered me, if somebody killed me, they wouldn't be talking about that I have diabetes, high blood pressure. They wouldn't talk about that, would they? No. But what happens? Because it's a way to try to place blame on the victim again. They were in trouble with the law before, or they've had a drug problem before, whatever. What does that have to do with anything? I mean, yes, we have consequences from our choices, but would we do that to somebody else? It doesn't happen to white people. I'm not saying it never does, but I'm talking, it's in general, it does not. They were killed. We don't talk about their pre-existing health conditions and all that stuff because it's irrelevant. About their record. So do you? I hope you begin to kind of think about that and understand that a little bit. And I'm trying to too, for those that already understand perspective taking, see if what I'm saying is on track. Keep me on track, okay? Let me know if I'm off. I hear the thunder again. All right, I'm going to start with my roof here of the slave cabin, because I'm going to do I think I got my sky pretty good. I might touch it up a little bit, but I'm going to do some slave cabin roof here. So I see that it's gray, so it's just kind of peeking out. So when I'm doing tours of the house in the drawing room, from right in these windows, I always talk about looking outside these windows to see, try to see a different perspective and think about a different perspective, what it looks like from down there up here. What's making this place look like this? So when we don't look at perspective properly, we can get into trouble. And this is something that has to be taught early. And the most important reason that you want people to have perspective, and you want to teach perspective to your children and grandchildren. And teachers, you want to teach it to your students. Is because it creates empathy. So I'm the kind of person, you know, I've always been this way. If I go to a movie, if I don't laugh and cry during the thing, I have all the emotions, go through anger, go through every emotion, I don't think it's a good movie. That's what I'm into. I want to see real life, okay? Some people want to see happy endings. But that's not what I prefer. Even if it's not even if it's a tragic ending, I'd rather have real than put a little black in here. Hey, we need some gray, don't we? Just some gray streaks. What do you think? Is that looking better? I like that. Makes it look a little better. Okay, it's raining again. Can you hear it? Can you hear the rain? It's a nice rain though. It's not really windy or anything. So this is a nice little shower. Yeah. So, we, you know, what do you think about that so far? Are you with me? Do you agree? What are some ways you teach perspective to your children? At Sotterley, sometimes, you know, we don't take first graders and just tell them all the gory details about slavery right away. It's a gradual. So first they have to realize that not everyone in the world is treated the same. Okay, that is not hard to do. So one of the stories we do when we have children, one of the stations we do, is we talk about George Kane. So George Kane, one from the Kane family. He, according to Agnes Kane Callum's oral tradition, he waited on the schoolhouse in the 19th century that was for wealthy girls and the Briscoe children. So he would bring wood and water and firewood and fetch, and he would stand outside while class was in session. So one of the questions I like to ask, and I tell the story of George, is what is George doing out there while he's standing? What is he doing? Do you see my picture? What is he doing out there while he's waiting, while he is listening to the girls get their lessons? Well, you know, I ask to kids, what is he doing? Well, he's, you know, I get some answers that are off, but eventually someone will say, well, he's listening. And yes, he is. Because I want them to understand that there's different ways to learn. People learn in different ways. You just being in a formal classroom doesn't mean you're not learning. Okay? You are learning, and there's evidence, archaeological evidence that, you know, enslaved at Sotterley practiced their letters, that probably some of them did know how to read. George was one of those people that left after emancipation and really, I can't remember. I don't think we know what happened to George. But evidently he wasn't married, so he chose to leave Sotterley. So you can see, you know, I'm an amateur, so don't worry. I'm not worried about it. It's my art, right? So I'm going to do some green now. I'm going to mix up some green and see if I can get some colors going for the grass and the greenery. I'm going to darken it up a little bit. So he left. He probably knew how to read and write. The Canes were musical people. They had music lessons at the school. So what do you think they did when they got back? They would practice, make their own instruments and practice. So there's different ways people can learn. And George is a lesson on not everybody is treated the same. So you can do that at a very young age. 2nd grade we start here doing that. So perspective is on most curriculums and most standards, teaching perspective. But if it's not done correctly, it doesn't do a bit of good. So you're not pretending you're somebody else. You are trying to figure out how they view the world through their experiences. Not your experiences, but their experiences. So that's the difference. But I see a lot of people messed up on perspective. They get a little bit of different perspective when they're talking about themselves or their close family members, but for everybody else, it's like, I just don't understand, they don't understand. So it's raining harder now. Do you hear it? I kind of like that. This kind of likes to look like folk art a little bit. I'm not an artist, remember. If you're just joining me, I am not an artist, but I'm talking about perspective today. So I just thought I'd get out my paints. You hear it? Hear the rain? It's really a nice rain. We needed it too. It was getting dry. The thing about St. Mary's County soil, it's so clay, and it's got a lot of clay, and if it doesn't rain, it just gets hard as a rock. Very annoying. But we really needed this rain today, so I'm glad it's raining. So I'm not worried about this because a lot of this is going to be covered up with green too, because there's green covering it up. There's green obscuring it right now. You can see a little bit of the white from the top, but not much. Okay, so perspective. There's all kinds of sociology terms for all this stuff, but I'm not going to get into all the terms. One of the best books I ever read was Racism and the Conspiracy of Silence. So you can look it up. Catherine, if you're listening, you can look it up and put the link on there if you have time. Don't worry about it. But it really opened my eyes because they talked about microaggressions, and most of you probably know what microaggressions are. It's these little annoying, hurtful things that happen to African American people and people of color all the time, every day. And it wears you down, and it traumatizes you and wears you down, and sometimes you don't even know it at the time. But it's everyday nonsense, things people say, things people do, and it's a legacy of slavery. This a lot of times African American communities, they have to trust you first before you're let into their lives. Why is that, do you think? Why do they have to trust you? What do you think? Well, because, you know, African American community and African Americans have been burned so many times, and they learned to survive slavery, they had to act differently than what they really felt all the time. And that is a legacy of slavery that has been passed on. And it still happens. Because, for one thing, it's, in a way, it's still necessary, unfortunately. It shouldn't be necessary. But unfortunately, it is. I need some brown here. Let's try to make some brown. I didn't buy any brown, so I had to make it. Let's see what I can do. I need some trees in the foreground. Some trees. Some trees obscuring the slate cabin. Okay, so what, how can that be solved? It's gonna take a long time. It already has taken a long time. We're hundreds of years. We're a long way away from the end of slavery, but we're still fighting this battle every single day. And I think perspective learning to see through another's eyes. Not acting like, well, if I were them, I would have done that. That is not a perspective, okay? That's inward thinking. That is not, you don't have perspective. That's your perspective. That's how you would have done it, and you don't even know because you weren't even there, right? So that is not what perspective is about. It's about seeing through another's eyes. Why does somebody make the decisions that they do based on what is their life experience? So it goes a long way to build empathy. I see a lot of people that don't have the empathy I would like them to see, because they're still talking about they don't understand it, or if they just did this or just did that, or I wouldn't have done that. Well, none of that is helpful, okay? None of it. None of that is helpful at all. So, so I'll talk a little bit about a white person's perspective. So it's, I've been going through this journey for quite a while now, but and I'm not there yet. I never will be. I have to constantly do this the rest of my life, as we talked about last week. But I teach these subjects at a site of slavery. So I'm notorious for when somebody asks a question, I ask another question back. Okay. They'll say things like, when you try to talk about slavery and get down to the meat of it, they'll say something like, well, what about the, they'll try to change the subject because they don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. So they want to change the subject on you. Another reaction is defensiveness. They get defensive because they don't, white people usually, there's some that are proud of it, but most people are, that's one thing they fear the most, being called a racist, and they'll swear up and down they aren't. But really what we're talking about is the implicit bias. You don't have to wear a hood to have implicit bias. Every white person that grew up in America has it. And implicit bias means that you do things that you don't even know you do that add to this microaggressions against people of color. And your mission is to try to understand that, and the best way is to do a critical examination of your feelings. Okay, I'll give you an example, and Ginger, I've used this example 100,000 times, but I'm going to use it again. So, Ginger, our museum shop manager, she is, she's African American, right? She has an interesting life experience, is that she was, grew up working in her store. She's college educated. So she has her unique experience. But we were talking about the election, last election, presidential election. And it was said that you, and I was the only one standing there, you white women didn't, voted for Trump, right? President Trump. So I got a ping in my heart. Something wasn't right with that. Something didn't compute. Because I'm thinking, what? What? You're not talking about me, are you? This is what I'm thinking. But my feelings are going wild because this is not computing for me. This is cognitive dissonance. Something's not right. So what I have to do is think, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel uncomfortable? Why do I feel like I'm not being understood? What is wrong in this picture? So I had to not talk. Okay, I didn't talk. I just went and examined my feelings and what was causing it. Well, I figured it out after a while. But some of you probably already guessed. But, white people consider themselves individuals, and everybody else is lumped in a group, right? White people are not used to being lumped into a group, and that was my problem. But African Americans and people of color get that all the time. They get those microaggressions every single day of their lives. So I don't have anything to complain about, but I had to figure out my own feelings. What was causing that? What was causing those feelings to happen? And when you can do that, and then when you can take correction, if you need to take correction from some people sometimes, if you mess up, because you're going to. Like I said, it's a lifelong journey to try to fix this, this mess that we've created. So, don't let it stop. These kinds of feelings, defensive feelings, get in your way of growth, is what I'm trying to tell you, white people. Okay? Don't let these defensive feelings get in the way of your growth. Just take it in, stop and think about it. Why do I feel this way? What is happening? So that was a simple example, but because it was so simple. Of course, I'm not used to being lumped in with all white women. Why would somebody do that? I'm me, right? I'm me. But African Americans have to go through that. People of color have to go through that every single day. Imagine. Okay, imagine what they go through. So that I can laugh about it now. Ginger and I laugh about it now. But, and there was no ill will. We're friends. There was no ill will at all. But I told her, we discussed it later, because I had to, because I was saying, man, I figured out what was wrong, Ginger. I don't want an apology. She didn't do anything wrong, okay? So I just wanted to, I want us to understand each other and be comfortable with each other. And that's what you have to do. And you have to learn perspective. One of the best ways to is to go back and listen to oral histories, and I've given you a lot of resources on that. My paint's probably cheap too. I didn't buy the best paint. But I'm trying. So let's get some trees going here. A lot of can I chew gum and do this at the same time? I don't know. To listen to oral histories, listen to other people's experiences, and really hear them. Try not to talk so much. You know, good listeners don't talk a lot. They talk when they have something important to say, but they're not always the one talking. And a lot of times they have something really good to contribute, but you just got to close your mouth long enough. Because not all people are going to trust you to tell their story to them. And that's okay too. They can choose to or not. That's their prerogative, right? Because they're individuals. They can do what they want, right? I'm just getting my trees going on. It's kind of thundering in the background. Still sprinkling a little bit, but it's pretty. It'll probably... I see some mosquitoes trying to eat me now. They said, yummy. They're out, so when you come to Sotterley, take precautions, spray. Yeah, all the critters are out, so. Okay. So I'm gonna need a white brush here. So, are you talking between yourselves? Are you commenting? Ask questions. Give me your thoughts. Give me your experiences. How about you sharing with everybody? Share a microaggression that you went through, or share one time when you felt like you were misunderstood. See, that was always my problem too when I was younger. I was worried about, you know, white people are, and I think I can speak for most people, is that you hate being misunderstood. But really, sometimes it's not that you're being misunderstood, it's that you have committed a microaggression and you just don't know it. You just think people understand it. You know, sometimes when I don't agree with somebody, they'll tell me, well, you don't understand. That happens to me a lot. You just don't understand, then. You don't understand what I'm saying. No, I understood what you were saying. It just, you know, I have a different viewpoint, or I don't agree. I don't know, does that happen to women a lot? I think it does. You know, you just don't understand what you're talking about. It's not that they won't accept that, you just don't agree with what they said. So, and like I said, everybody's an individual, so they have different ideas about how to solve problems. They have different experiences. So understand, I'm not saying understanding perspective and improving understanding perspective is easy. Oh, no. It's not. Even though I think I was born with a temperament that always interests me, So I'm always trying to find out, you know, what makes people tick and what's their perspective. I still have, you know, implicit bias because I'm a white person, right? So I have to work on that stuff. Okay, I'm going to do some little white here for the slave cabin. Need a white brush. It's not doing it for me. All right, so I'm going to, you know, let you go here in a minute, but if you have anything else to comment on, share, like this program, share this program. We appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the artwork and something different today. And please, you know, this is just even, I'm not an artist. You don't have to be an artist, and you don't have to take an art class, although those are fun. But you don't have to do that to do any kind of art, healing art. See? Need some more green. So I will let you go, but thank you for being with me, and thank you for supporting Sotterley, and we appreciate every single one of you, and we hope you stay safe and well during this time, and hope your lives are as peaceful as they can be. All right? I will sign off for now. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.